It's 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in February 2016. Inside the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, one of the most secure financial institutions on Earth, something extraordinary is about to happen. A computer terminal lights up with an incoming wire transfer request. Then another, and another. 35 requests in total, each one perfectly formatted, each one bearing the correct authentication codes. The requests are coming from Bangladesh Bank asking to transfer nearly $1 billion from their Federal Reserve account to accounts across Asia. The transfers look legitimate, the codes check out, the requests are approved. What the Federal Reserve doesn't know is that halfway around the world, a group of hackers has just executed one of the most audacious cyber heists in history. They've infiltrated the global banking system itself, turning the very networks that move trillions of dollars every day into their personal ATM. This isn't some random attack by amateur cybercriminals. This is warfare disguised as theft, carried out by some of the most sophisticated hackers on the planet. By the time the dust settles, they will have stolen over $80 million in a single morning. But that's just the beginning. What you're about to discover is how a coordinated army of hackers brought Wall Street to its knees, cost financial institutions $500 million in damages, and exposed just how fragile our entire economic system really is. The story I'm about to tell you involves 3 separate but connected cyber campaigns that targeted the heart of American finance. We're talking about attacks on JP Chase, Bank of America, the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, and dozens of other institutions that collectively process trillions of dollars every single day. These weren't opportunistic attacks by lone wolves. These were military-grade operations carried out by state-sponsored hacking groups with virtually unlimited resources and a single goal: to prove that no financial institution, no matter how powerful, was beyond their reach. The first wave began in 2011, and it was unlike anything the financial world had ever seen. Iranian hackers, working on behalf of their government and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, launched what can only be described as digital warfare against American banks. They built massive botnets consisting of thousands of infected computers, turning ordinary people's laptops and desktops into weapons of mass disruption. These weren't your typical hackers trying to steal credit card numbers or personal information. These were cyber soldiers with a mission to bring down the American financial system. Their weapon of choice was something called a distributed denial of service attack, or DDoS. Imagine trying to get into a building, but there are thousands of people all trying to push through the same door at the exact same time. That's essentially what these hackers did to bank websites, except instead of people. They used infected computers to flood bank servers with so much fake traffic that legitimate customers couldn't get through. The scale of these attacks was staggering. On some days, bank servers were hit with 140 gigabits of data per second. To put that in perspective, that's enough data to download the entire contents of a typical smartphone every single second. The attacks lasted for over 176 days, hitting Bank of America, JP Chase, Wells Fargo, US Bank, PNC, and dozens of others in coordinated waves that left hundreds of thousands of customers unable to access their accounts online. But here's what made these attacks truly terrifying. They worked. Major banks, with their billion-dollar security budgets and teams of cybersecurity experts, were brought to their knees by hackers operating from internet cafes thousands of miles away. Customers couldn't check their balances, transfer money, or pay bills. The banks had to spend tens of millions of dollars just to keep their systems running, hiring emergency response teams, and implementing costly countermeasures that often proved ineffective. While American banks were still reeling from the Iranian attacks, a different group of hackers was quietly preparing an even more ambitious operation. This time, the target wasn't just bank websites or customer accounts. They were going after the SWIFT network itself, the secure messaging system that banks use to move money around the world. If the DDoS attacks were like throwing rocks at windows, this was like stealing the keys to the vault. The hackers responsible for this operation were believed to be working for North Korea's Bureau 121, an elite cyber warfare unit also known as the Lazarus Group. These weren't script kiddies playing around in their bedrooms. These were professional cyber warriors with military training and access to some of the most sophisticated hacking tools ever developed. Their mission was simple but audacious: infiltrate the global banking system and steal as much money as possible. Their first major success came in February 2016 when they targeted Bangladesh Bank. The attack was a masterpiece of patience and precision. The hackers spent months studying how the bank operated, learning the daily routines of employees, understanding exactly how money transfers were authorized and processed. They installed custom malware that could not only send fraudulent transfer requests, but also hide all evidence of what they had done. When they finally struck, it was with surgical precision. They waited until Friday evening in Bangladesh, knowing that it would be the middle of the night in New York when their transfer requests reached the Federal Reserve. This timing was crucial because it meant there would be fewer people around to notice anything suspicious. They sent 35 transfer requests totaling nearly $1 billion, carefully spacing them out to avoid triggering automatic fraud detection systems. The beauty of their plan was in its simplicity. They weren't trying to hack the Federal Reserve directly, which would have been nearly impossible. Instead, they compromised Bangladesh Bank's systems and used the bank's own legitimate access to the SWIFT network against them. It was like stealing someone's keys and then using those keys to rob their house while wearing their clothes and driving their car. Most of the transfer requests were caught by security systems or rejected for technical reasons, but 5 transfers totaling $101 million were approved. Of those, $81 million actually made it out of the Federal Reserve and into accounts controlled by the hackers. In a single morning, they had pulled off one of the largest bank heists in history, without ever setting foot inside a bank. But the Bangladesh bank heist was just the beginning. The same group would go on to target banks in Vietnam, Ecuador, and other countries, refining their techniques with each attack. They had discovered something that would send shockwaves through the financial world. The SWIFT network, the backbone of international banking, had vulnerabilities that could be exploited by anyone with enough skill and patience. Meanwhile, back in the United States, a different kind of cyber attack was unfolding. This one was more personal, more targeted, and ultimately more profitable than anything that had come before. In 2014, hackers managed to break into JP Chase and steal data from over 83 million customer accounts. That's roughly 2 out of every 3 households in America. The JP attack wasn't just about stealing data. It was about using that data to manipulate financial markets for profit. The hackers, led by a group that included Israeli nationals and American accomplices, had figured out how to turn stolen customer information into a money-making machine. They used the data to run pump-and-dump schemes, manipulating stock prices and making hundreds of millions of dollars in the process. What made this attack particularly sophisticated was how long it went undetected. The hackers had been inside JP systems for months, quietly copying customer data and studying how the bank's internal systems worked. They were so careful and methodical that the bank's security team didn't discover the breach until July 2014, and it took them another month to completely remove the hackers from their systems. The scale of the data theft was unprecedented. Names, addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses for 83 million customers were stolen, creating a treasure trove of information that could be used for identity theft, phishing attacks, and financial fraud. The bank was forced to double its cybersecurity spending from $250 million to $500 million within 5 years just to prevent similar attacks. But perhaps the most shocking part of these attacks wasn't their sophistication or their scale. It was how easy they were to carry out. The hackers didn't need billion-dollar budgets or teams of computer scientists. They just needed patience, basic technical knowledge, and the willingness to exploit one fundamental weakness: human error. The Iranian DDoS attack succeeded because thousands of ordinary people had clicked on malicious links or downloaded infected files, unknowingly turning their computers into weapons. The Bangladesh bank heist worked because bank employees used outdated software with known security flaws. The JP Morgan breach happened because the bank's security team missed a single unpatched server hidden in their vast network. These weren't failures of technology. They were failures of human systems, processes, and oversight. And that's what made them so terrifying for financial institutions around the world. If hackers could compromise Bangladesh Bank's SWIFT credentials, they could potentially do the same to any bank. If they could overwhelm major American banks with DDoS attacks, no financial institution was truly safe. The aftermath of these attacks sent shockwaves through Wall Street and beyond. Banks that had spent decades building reputations for security and reliability suddenly found themselves explaining to customers why their websites were down or their data had been stolen. Regulatory agencies launched investigations, Congress held hearings. The entire financial industry was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. They were fighting a war they weren't prepared for. The costs were staggering. The Iranian DDoS attacks alone cost American banks tens of millions of dollars in remediation efforts. JP Morgan Chase's response to their data breach required a complete overhaul of their cybersecurity infrastructure. Bangladesh Bank not only lost $81 million, but also faced years of legal battles and regulatory scrutiny. When you add up all the direct losses, emergency response costs, system upgrades, and long-term security investments, the total damage easily exceeded $500 million. But the real cost wasn't measured in dollars. It was measured in trust. For the first time in modern history, ordinary people began to question whether their money was truly safe in the banking system. If hackers could steal from the Federal Reserve itself, what did that mean for regular customers trying to pay their bills or check their account balances? The attacks also revealed something else. The interconnected nature of modern finance made every institution vulnerable. When hackers brought down Bank of America's website, it didn't just affect Bank of America customers. It affected anyone trying to do business with those customers. When the SWIFT network was compromised, it threatened the entire system of international money transfers that keeps global commerce flowing. Financial institutions responded the only way they knew how: by spending more money on cybersecurity. Banks hired thousands of new security experts, invested in advanced threat detection systems, and implemented multiple layers of authentication for sensitive transactions. Some banks adopted a two-person rule for high-value transfers, requiring multiple employees to authorize large transactions. Others began using artificial intelligence to detect unusual patterns in network traffic or account activity. The SWIFT network itself underwent a massive security overhaul, implementing new monitoring systems and requiring banks to meet stricter security standards. The Federal Reserve and other central banks began conducting regular cybersecurity stress tests, forcing financial institutions to prove they could withstand sophisticated attacks. But even as defenses improved, the hackers evolved too. The same North Korean group behind the Bangladesh bank heist continued targeting financial institutions around the world, adapting their techniques to overcome new security measures. The Iranian hackers shifted their focus to other critical infrastructure targets. New groups emerged, some working for governments, others operating as cybercriminal enterprises focused purely on profit. Today, nearly a decade after these landmark attacks, the war between hackers and financial institutions continues. Banks now spend billions of dollars annually on cybersecurity, employing armies of experts who monitor networks around the clock, hunting for signs of intrusion. But despite all these investments, successful attacks still occur regularly. Just in 2024, Equilend, a firm that processes trillions of dollars in securities transactions, was hit by ransomware that knocked critical systems offline for days. The hackers who brought down Wall Street for $500 million proved something that changed finance forever. In the digital age, no institution is too big to fail, too secure to breach, or too powerful to embarrass. They showed that a small group of determined individuals with basic technical skills could paralyze institutions that employ thousands of people and manage trillions of dollars. The most unsettling part of this entire saga isn't what happened to these banks. It's what it revealed about the world we live in today. Every time you swipe your credit card, check your account balance on your phone, or transfer money to a friend, you're participating in a system that's fundamentally built on trust. Trust that the networks are secure. Trust that the institutions are competent. Trust that the people protecting your money know what they're doing. But these attacks shattered that trust in ways that most people still don't fully understand. The hackers didn't just steal money or crash websites. They exposed the dirty secret that everyone in finance already knew but nobody wanted to admit. The entire global financial system is held together with digital duct tape and prayers. Think about it this way. The SWIFT network that moves trillions of dollars around the world every day was designed in the 1970s when the biggest cybersecurity threat was someone physically breaking into a computer room. The online banking systems that millions of people use were built on top of mainframe computers from the 1980s. And the people responsible for protecting these systems are often working with security protocols that were written before most of today's hackers were even born. The hackers who pulled off these attacks understood something that took the financial industry years to accept. In cyberspace, offense will always have the advantage over defense. A bank has to protect thousands of different systems, applications, and network connections. A hacker only needs to find one weakness, one forgotten server, one employee who clicks the wrong link. And here's the truly terrifying part. These attacks we've talked about represent just a tiny fraction of what's actually happening. For every successful attack that makes headlines, there are dozens of attempts that banks quietly repel or cover up. For every billion-dollar heist that gets investigated by the FBI, there are countless smaller thefts that never get reported because banks don't want to admit they were compromised. The hackers who brought down Wall Street didn't just steal money. They stole something far more valuable. The illusion of security that the entire financial system depends on. They proved that in the digital age, your life savings are only as secure as the weakest link in a chain that stretches across the entire planet. But perhaps most importantly, they showed us what happens when the tools of war become available to anyone with an internet connection and enough motivation to use them. These weren't traditional criminals robbing banks with guns and getaway cars. These were digital warriors using keyboards as weapons and turning the very infrastructure of modern finance against itself. The next time you check your bank account or make an online payment, remember this story. Remember that somewhere in the world, right now, there are people working around the clock to protect your money from threats you'll never see coming. And remember that despite all their efforts, all their technology, and all their expertise, the hackers are still out there, still evolving, still looking for the next weakness to exploit. The war for Wall Street never really ended. It just moved online, where the battles are fought in silence and the casualties are measured in dollars rather than lives. And in this war, the only certainty is that it's far from over.